Do you need some business perspective? When you're inside the bottle, it's really hard to read the label. You've probably heard that before, and I highly recommend you getting a mastermind. I've preached and preached and preached, or a coach, somebody that can help you, especially during these trying times, right? This is the epitome of if you're in the arena and doing the work. We have to really push out all that negativity and work on our own goals, because amazing things happen when there's this much change for small business owners that embrace it and not push it away. So I highly recommend, if you don't have a mastermind, a coach, now is the time, because everybody else is kind of running scared. So if you're interested in my mastermind group, go check out eventualmillionaire.com/apply. We are taking applications now for our April group. So make sure you check that out. And of course, let us know if you have any questions. I will only accept you if I think it's the absolute right fit for you and your business and where you want to go. Either way, have an utterly fantastic, amazing day. Stay tuned.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and today on the show, I am really excited to have Jessica Zimmerman. She's done wedding and floral arrangements, plus she has her own online business now. You can check her out at jessicazimmerman.com. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Jaime. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
I so appreciate your story. It's like from burnt out, which unfortunately a lot of people listening right now are kind of in that state too, actually enjoying time and balance and being with the kiddos. Can you just sort of give me a trajectory of your story on that?
Yeah, I mean, the short version of it is that I knew that I wanted to own my own business. My sister died when I was little. And my mom kind of put all of her energy into me, which was her, her only living child left, and which makes perfect sense as a mom. I get that. But when I went off to college, I saw that was really difficult for her. I mean, in a way, I was her job, her work, that's what she woke up for. And so I knew that, I kind of really grew up knowing that tomorrow isn't promised. Like, people say that, but I really know that to my core. And so I knew that tomorrow wasn't promised. And I also knew that even if I got married and had children of my own, there's no guarantee that they're always going to be with me, that I'm going to live this long life with them and everything. And so I just saw how difficult it was for my mom when I left. And I thought, I need to have something that is mine, outside of my family. And that in the event that something happened to all of them, I still have this one anchor that is just mine, so that I don't lose, my entire self. And, but I still wanted to be a present mom. I wanted to be able to be there like my mom was for me. I wanted to be able to pick my kids up from school, to go to dance recitals and soccer games and all of that. And the only way that I knew how to do that was to own my own business. I couldn't imagine, having to ask off for every Valentine party and, everything. And so I basically just knew I wanted to own my own business, and I got married very young. I live here in the South, and that's what we do a lot. And I got married at 23, right out of college, to my husband, Brian. And we waited. Most of our friends had babies right away. We were in our 30s when we had children. We had waited 8 years, and Stella was a surprise. And then about a year and a half later, we had twin boys. So we went from nothing to just us to all of a sudden being a family of 5. And yeah, I don't know. We just, life got crazy really quickly. And my husband got very ill after that. He was kind of in and out of the hospital. And that's when I really kind of took on this role of, okay, I have had this business, like a little hobby business, that I got to kind of say was mine. But now my husband, who is always taking care of us, I don't see how he's going to be able to keep his job being in and out of the hospital. He was the financial advisor, and you have to be out and you have to be making deals. And I thought, I'm going to have to figure this out. I'm going to have to do this. And so that year he was in the hospital. I had a girl who had just turned 2. My sons were newborn twin boys. And that was when I decided to get my act together with my business and kind of turn it around. Yeah.
How, oh my God, I have so many questions in regards to this. I mean, so it's interesting. So number one, go you for not having kids till you're 30. But number two, oh my gosh, that I can't even fathom. My best friend has twin boys, and one at the beginning and twin boys would be ridiculous, let alone having a husband in the hospital. How did you even manage the strength to do more in that situation? Normally people would just go bankrupt and call it a
Right.
day and just try and be the best mom they can to their kids.
It's really interesting because you know, I went into my business with the best of intentions. And I really believed the things that I heard, which was like, your business won't turn a profit for 5 years. You just, you know, you kill yourself. And then all of a sudden this 5 year mark happens and then it's going to be great. Like I kind of believed that. And everything that I did with the best of intentions. Like I, you know, did a new website, which cost money. But I had a business that was a wedding rental business at first, and it was a big storefront. I had a 6,000 square foot building. And what I realized was I was having to spend the majority of my day, you know, from 9 to 5 working the showroom. And then after that, because I couldn't afford a team, I would have to stay and like do the actual work. You know, people were renting linens that weekend. I had to wash them and iron them. And I had to, you know, move the candelabras to the back to where they were going to be loaded. And my husband would come help me. And after my daughter was, I guess, about 6 months old, I came home late at night and I reached out for her and she didn't want me. Of course she didn't. She was with my, you know, her grandmother all day. Her grandmother was watching her. And here I am. And I go, I'm not even making anything. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't even anything to show for it. The business was bringing in like 30 grand a month, but it was spending 31 a month or 29.5 or what. And I just couldn't keep up with it. So it was shortly after that that I made the decision. I don't know how I got it. I still to this day, I have no idea. I went in, I guess I'm just good at sales. I went into the bank, asked a loan officer for $100,000 loan because I believed that if I could just buy myself enough time, that I could learn this. I just knew that I didn't, to me, it wasn't even about success at this point. It was about not failing. Like I was not, the most miserable thing that I could ever do is go work at a corporate job. Mm-hmm. I just can't, I've got to have the freedom to like take my idea and run with it. And I knew that I could do it if I could just buy myself the time. And at the time, my expenses, like the overhead was about 15 grand a month. And if we didn't have any other thing we had going on with clients. And so I took 60,000 of that 100,000 to buy myself 4 months. And then I took 40,000 to just immerse myself in as much education as I could. And I really learned how to build the foundation of business, which is what I was lacking. And it was all very simple stuff. None of it is rocket science. I mean, it was all very simple, basic things that you just don't know until you know. And I think that's the thing that a lot of business owners are struggling with is their intentions are so good. They're not going into this trying to be reckless with money. They're not spending it, you know, aimlessly. They genuinely want to do well and they think they are. But it's just like building, you know, my boys love the Three Little Pigs and, you know, building the house of straw and then a brick. And my business was built of straw at the first. And so like anytime anything happened, everything crashed down and I had to restart. So there's no way I could build up on it. There's no way I could elevate or scale or grow because it constantly was falling down and I was having to redo those things. But by going and building the foundation correctly, that's when things really started to change and really asking myself, what do I really want? Like outside of business, like let's just pretend there's a bank account filled with money and no one is depending on me. Like, what would I do? Like, how would I spend my time? And I just realized that time was my greatest commodity, always has been. And I've known that since my sister passed away. And so really trying to get back into an effort of that. And so that's when I sold my rentals, decided to do floral only by appointment only. And that's when, you know, we may have only brought in 10 grand a month, but we were only spending 4, that kind of thing.
This is nobody really talks about the boring foundational business stuff. Yeah. You're like, oh, to get an MBA, but that's full of fluff of people, not always, but a lot of times that people have never really done what the basics of business are. And I talk about this with clients all the time. And it's like, Oh my gosh, mind-blowing stuff, which, like you said, it's not really. It's just timing and the right information at the right time. But you also had the guts. Like, that's what I'm really impressed with, is that you had the guts to take a $100,000 loan when you had small children, you know, and to cut off something that was your bread and butter beforehand. Like, that stuff's scary. How did you get through, and how did you know that it was the right way to go?
You know, it's interesting. So I've known ever since I was little. This is weird to say out loud because I think people think, really? But the truth is I remember when my sister died, I remember being at her funeral. And listen, I miss her every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her, that I do not miss her. But I remember thinking, there is something more that you are supposed to do. There's something bigger that you're supposed to do, and I don't really know what that is, but this had to happen in order for this to happen. Like, that it was all part of a master plan. And I felt that has always given me peace. And what I learned later on, by going to therapy, because a few years ago in 2017, I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like I was having a heart attack. And I drove myself to the ER because it was going to take too much time for me to wake up, you know, a 4-year-old daughter and 2-year-old twin boys and get them strapped in car seats and everything. So I literally shook my husband and said, I'm driving myself to the hospital and I'll keep you on speakerphone, because that was going to get me there faster. They did a CAT scan. They asked if I was stressed. And I said, no, I'm not stressed. I don't view stress as stress. I just see, like, what's the problem? What's the thing we have to do to solve it? And I just take those next steps. So at the end, he said, no, you're stressed. Like, your whole body is colonized with stress. So I can either put you on medication or you can start going to therapy. And I was like, and my insurance will cover therapy? And he was like, yes. And I said, I choose that one. And so what my therapist told me is that when my sister died, I aged emotionally about a decade. And so a 13-year-old, I was really thinking more along the lines of a 23-year-old. As a 23-year-old, I'm thinking more of a 33, these kinds of things, which is why at 23, when all of my friends are having children, my thought process was, I don't care anything about being a young mom. I care about being a prepared mom, a financially stable mom, you know, all these things. So there was always, to answer your question, there was always something in me that knew there was a purpose for me. And even though I didn't really know what that was, I've always been willing to bet on myself. And my husband, who is the least risky human being on the planet, I mean, so not
financial
risky
planner, yeah.
Yeah. It's the only thing he has ever not questioned is betting on me, because he had to co-sign that loan.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in that meeting and he's like, yeah, I mean, she's going to figure it out. She's going to do it. There's no doubt in my mind, you know? And so he is just, anytime that I have had a gut feeling, you know, we've bought some different property and stuff, and he's kind of like, I don't know. And I'm on the phone literally like with the realtor saying, here's our offer. Because I'm like, no, Brian, this makes sense. Like, and here's why. And I don't get that feeling that often. So when I do, I really trust it. I really do think that, that's kind of my arrow. And here's the other thing. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, if it all goes belly up, Brian and I have lived in a teeny tiny, I like to call them T90 little home. We have lived off of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We have, you know what I mean? And we were fine and we were happy. So if the very worst that happens is we go back to that, well, we already know what that's like. So that's really able to take a lot of the fear out of it. Even today, I have a book coming out soon called Sleeping with a Stranger. And it's really about what was going on personally when all of the business building was happening. And I've had to make some risks with this. I decided to self-publish it because I wanted to own the rights to it and everything. And so I'm having to front all the money. But even that, I'm like, I don't even know if one person's going to buy it. But at the end of the day, if no one buys it, like, the worst that happens is, you know, we have to sell some land or something. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's okay.
I'll buy it. So at
Yeah,
least me,
good,
and then
good.
everybody listening, we'll tweet about it. We'll post it on social because
Yeah.
because we know as entrepreneurs that risk is a little part of it, right? Like, and I'm quite risk averse overall. Like, I interview people and I'm like, that's an interesting choice. I really appreciate that. So I want to dive into sort of your gut feeling, but before I get to that, over and over and over again, I hear people talking about stress, and entrepreneurs. I don't even realize that I'm in it half the time. And we just did a retreat and they don't even get it. Like they don't even understand and a lot of the times it can be trauma from the past, right? That brings it up, and business and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is like, makes it all the times worse. Right. So how did you not know that you were stressed? And then what did you do to try and alleviate that? Was it just the therapy or did it help in business?
Well, therapy started me understanding things. Therapy, I continue to go to therapy every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, 10 a.m., I'm sitting there at the therapist office. And what I found for me is, and half the time I'm talking about my business, but because I'm the owner of my business, it's really wonderful to be able to go somewhere and just verbally process. And just verbally process and be able to say, I'm a little scared about this, or I'm a little, whatever. And to come back and go, well, even recently, I decided to sell that 6,000 square foot building downtown. And I thought I would never sell that ever. I was like, this is my retirement. I mean, it's got the best real estate in all of downtown. Like, I will never sell it. And I just started feeling this gut feeling of I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's an image. There's this image on the internet. It's of Jesus, and he has a huge teddy bear behind his back, and there's a little girl in front of him holding a small teddy bear. And he's saying, like, if you give me the small teddy bear, I've got this great big teddy bear to give you, but you have to trust me. And that's all I could think about with this building was like, you've got to trust me to get to give this to me because I've got something else for you. Like, we can't get to the next level. It has nothing to do with this building. You got to let it go. And I just was so, I really thought I would have that building forever. And so recently we decided to do that. And I was talking to Lynn about it, my therapist, and he said, are you holding on to that building out of fear? So sometimes it's really great to have a therapist talk about business with. And I was like, yeah, I think I am. And he said, well, then there's your answer, which was really helpful. But to answer the question about stress, I believe some of us are wired. What I've learned over the past 3 years more than anything is that our mind, our body, and our spirit is connected. It's connected. And so for about 2 years solid, I was taking care of my husband, trying to find an answer to his illness. Nobody knew what was wrong. Trying to, raise my children, trying to grow this business from a hobby to bringing home a 6-figure salary. I was trying to, and I just was doing what had to be done. And so my mind was working overtime. And then when all of that kind of stopped, my body became exhausted. And what I have now learned is that, like, if I am trying to write something and it's just not coming to me, if I will go for a walk, the answer will come. If I get on the treadmill and I have the intention to run 3 miles and I can't even get a jog going, if I will get down and just be still for 5 minutes, which is the hardest thing for entrepreneurs to do, because we're like, the more we can get done in a day, and what I have really learned over the past year is the power of passivity. Because if I will sit and be quiet and then I get back on that treadmill, I can run 5 miles. They're connected. And what we tend to do is burn out one of those instead of paying attention daily to all three. Now that is my biggest responsibility every day. Before I do anything else, I'm going to handle those 3 things. Then and only then can I start my day.
Okay. Do you see my excited face? This stuff is huge. And and what I love specifically about talking to entrepreneurs that are in it, right? Like, it's one thing to write a book about it and everyone's like, oh, that's great. Right. But it's another thing to be like, oh, I had to do this. Like there was no way around it. I really, really had to make sure that I had all these three things. And it comes up over and over and over again here. How I usually say it's like defragging yourself. Like we don't, as entrepreneurs, don't give ourselves a chance to actually defrag, even though it
Yeah.
will get us farther faster. It's like, no, I just have to hold myself really, really tight. And then maybe one day it'll get better. So
Yeah.
your story of going, okay, I had to do some hard stuff. I'm taking care of, especially for everything that you were going through with your husband's illness and small children. Like, no offense, everybody that's listening, this is insane what she went through, let alone the trauma of your childhood. How did you actually make the shift? And I want to talk about like the sweet spot of where you are now, because we talked about a lot of the crap. And I want to make sure that we can talk about what you get to enjoy right now.
Yeah, I think, I always knew, even when going through those couple of years with the illness and everything, I had this gut feeling that there was a reason for it. And like I said, the book is really about Sleeping with a Stranger, is really about what was going on personally during this time. And I mean, there were hard things. I mean, Brian, after his body went, after that started to heal, his mind kind of went. And so I almost felt like I was grieving again. Like, here's my husband's body is walking around, but he's not there. And what was interesting is that, I was trying to really let me heal him. Let me give my kids these experiences. Let me build my business. Let me do this. Just putting it all on me. And once I was like, you know what? And this was, again, Lynn, my therapist, was like, what if you didn't do anything for Brian for a little bit? Like, what if and I was like, what are you talking about? Again, going back to our intention, my intention was, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, I'm being a supportive wife.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that I was actually not allowing Brian to experience his own journey, that I was trying to really control his journey, and that control is not love. And that what love is to just support someone where they're at. Mm-hmm. So now I really try to do that. But during that process of really stepping away from him is when I really started working on, meditation and those kinds of things, which what I learned is that it's really what it is passive prayer. If that's helpful for any of your listeners. In active prayer, however you pray, you're asking for things or you're seeking things and you're actively doing it. But we rarely take time to listen. And it's not that I get a voice. There's not a voice that happens to me that's like, Jessica, here's your next move. What happens to me is that whatever I was worried about, I no longer I'm worried. There's just more of a peace. And when you have a peace with your work, you really know, like, it's not going to be okay. Like, this is all going to work out. And that you don't have to have all the answers today. Just what's the next thing you need to do?
I love all of this. It's funny because at the retreat last week, this is what we were talking about, all super, super high level entrepreneurs. And we're talking about meditation. And one of the things that I gave them was by Kyle Cease. He talks about how before meditation, he's like, I have all these things on my to-do list, blah, blah, blah. He sits down for meditation and he goes, I don't actually have to do any of those things,
Yeah, totally. Huh. You think it's so important, and then you realize it really isn't. And some of those things are going to get done. And, but yeah, so I had my floral design business, and then, but I always felt like almost a fraud a little bit. Like, I didn't know why I was there. I would meet other floral designers who, if you told them they couldn't touch a flower again, they would be like, well, end it now for me, because I was born in a garden. And I'm like, I don't care. I really don't care. I think they're pretty, but I really don't care. And so I was just like, what am I even doing in this industry? And people started to see my business picking up and me, getting these bigger weddings and these bigger budgets. And people would just start messaging me, asking me advice. And then I started doing just these little consultations. I think one of the things that was really appealing is I didn't live in a big city. I lived in a small town in Arkansas, and I was still able to get like 6-figure weddings and all of that. And so I noticed that I was asked the same question over and over again. And I didn't even really know what an online course was at the time. I wrote my whole process just because I was tired. I became kind of a master in efficiency. And I was really tired of just answering the same thing. So I wrote it all down in this like locked PDF that was like 300 pages long. And I sold it through my Instagram with 300 followers. and I sold 43 copies of it.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
And so I found an ad on Facebook of somebody who can help you like scale it. And I told her that, and she was like, holy
That's
cow.
exactly what I said. Wow, that's really
She was
impressive.
like, okay, yeah, we're going to take you on as a client, and so I was able to move it to like a legit platform. And then we sold 6 months later, 250 copies of that. And, but what I'm really proud of is the fact that, what I teach, that program is the business behind the blooms. And all of this can be found at jessicazimmerman.com. But business behind the blooms was, nobody was sharing all of it. They'd share 60%, but they needed their business. That was their main source of income. And for me, I didn't really care. Like, I was like, I don't really like doing it anyway, so let me just share with you everything. And I found people really found that refreshing. And then I have a program called Know Your Numbers, which what I love about that program is we as creatives have a hard time. We don't even want to talk about numbers. And I have several students who have husbands that are financial advisors or accountants, CPAs, who they have sat down with their husbands and they can't get it. But they go through my program and they're like, okay. It's like finally someone is speaking their language. And so, and that is so rewarding to see people be able to, be debt free after a year, or pay off 50 grand in debt in 1 year. I had a student who thought she would never, it would take her 20 years to pay off her student loans. She paid them off in 1 year. Once you understand it, it's really simple. And again, it just goes back to that foundation of business. Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. I think the hard thing is, I had a client the other day who was like, I need to hire a CFO, like part-time CFO. I was like, you need to know like these 5 things. It's really not, don't kill yourself over this stuff, right? Totally. It's not rocket science, or at least the beginning stages of implementation really aren't. And we will overcomplicate things potentially because we're like, I don't know what the right thing is. But like you said, a lot of times it's just simple. It's actually simple.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about what your work life is like now, like your team, what you're actually doing. Are you still doing, I saw beautiful photos on your website. So whether you like the flowers or not, they look amazing.
Well, thank you. I was able to hone a craft, I guess. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I have a definite appreciation for aesthetic. So I really appreciate, a gorgeous vintage 1960s chair by, a Danish designer, or an Italian 1970s sconce. I have an appreciation for aesthetics. So I was able to I feel like I know it looks decent for a wedding, a color palette and stuff, but I definitely I don't know all the names of the flowers and all of those things. So I don't do weddings anymore. I feel like and this is the other thing that I think is really important. I think there are some of us who, Lynn, my therapist, likes to say that I'm a entrepreneur at life. That some of us are entrepreneurs of a certain business, like of the restaurant world or of the, whatever. He's like, you're an entrepreneur at life. Like, you are constantly looking for a better way to do things. And I'm a bit of a multi-hyphenate. And at first I thought, that makes me weird or strange or odd that I can't just but then I thought, no, like, that's the whole reason why you didn't want to go into corporate, is you didn't want to be in one job for the rest of your life. That sounds miserable to you. So now I've really embraced the fact that, like, okay, I had to do the rental world to get to the floral world. I had to do the floral world to now be able to teach about wedding planning. Then I had to do that to learn how to teach to a broader audience about the foundation of business, and and now, that I've been able to share really vulnerably about business. Now I'm prepared to share really vulnerably about my personal life in this book. And so now I just look at it almost as a path, like a road of big square stepping stones, and all the ones behind me are lit up. And I can see how each thing I've done has led to the next thing. And the one I'm standing on isn't lit up yet. And the ones ahead of me aren't. But I have to really trust that, like, my gut, when you're constantly, there's a difference between not like it. Like, I don't love doing payroll, but it's part of business. I'm going to have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean I'm going to quit my job. But like, if I am just no longer passionate about weddings and there's nothing that excites me or is interesting, well, then that's a compass turner. You've got to start. It doesn't mean you quit it right away, but I would say about a year before I stopped doing that, I started moving in the direction of my last wedding will be June of 2018. And what really solidified that for me was, it was one of my best weddings. It was featured in Martha Stewart weddings. I mean, like it was kind of, which is like the Oscar of our industry.
The epitome, yes.
It was like, what else is there to do? Like, do I just keep trying to do that again? So for me, it was a real easy way to be like, no, it's time for the next thing, which is scary and risky, but success is never going to happen until preparation meets opportunity. And I believe everything has prepared me for the next opportunity.
Especially when you said that specifically, we think of like sports stars and you're like, they're past their prime and yet they're still doing it and you just feel bad. It feels like that when you're like in the business and like your heart's not in it and you're like still doing, making the moves and everyone's like, she just, what tips do you have for that though? Because I love the analogy of stepping stones, and yet that leap, that from one to another, that time frame is scary as heck. So what tips, besides meditating and that gut instinct, reminding yourself of that, what tips do you have during that time? Because that's where a lot of people are and get freaked out.
The in-between is the hardest part. I call it the in-between. It's like right now I'm in an in-between. I'm I still have my education, but I'm moving into like, I have this book and I have a TED Talk coming out and I don't really know what's going to come out of all of that. And so there's some unknown there. And so you're kind of in this in between, which is a hard place. But I think you really just have to, first of all, I think there's a little bit of enjoying your life and being like, at the end of the day, this isn't that serious. I mean, if we look back at things, history can teach us a lot. But I think if we look back and we go, history of our own lives, and we go, remember how what a big deal I made out of that? Like that, if anyone knew that I know now knew what a big deal I made up. Like, I seem like a crazy person. Like, I try to remind myself of that and be like, okay, at the end of the day, this really isn't that big of a deal. Like, let's just make a list of what you need to do today. And as long as you get those things done, like, you're good. There's no way, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, the in-between is hard. The in-between is hard. But I think to ask how if you want to go there or not, I think this is interesting. So I think if you look at people that you envy, not that you're jealous of, we don't wish these people harm. Envy. Like if you were to write down 3 names of people that you're envious of. I did this a couple years ago and it was interesting. I ended up writing down 3 couples. I was like, what does that say about me? And then you write down, what are the things you envy? And for me, it was things like they are able to, they both have a lifestyle where they're able to go and do. So it's not like one's locked down and one can go. They have beautiful homes, the aesthetic. They have children and they travel. They do speaking and get whatever it is. You write down the things. What that's your arrow. If you're naturally drawn to that, if you're like, I kind of want that, you've got to start, you cannot go, well, that's not for me. Like that's for them. They all live in New York City. I live in Conway, Arkansas. They can afford, whatever. And I can't have this big brownstone in Brooklyn. You can't kill your dreams with the how. You've got to just be like, you know what? I could live that life, or I could be I am worthy of that. But I think those are the things the things that we're envious of are really, that's our like internal compass pointing us like, that's kind of the direction you need to be going. And I find a lot of people just try to convince themselves that that's not.
Yes, because we're stuck in our heads instead of our hearts. And when you can disconnect and go, what do you actually want? Oh, wait, these things are really important. I love that exercise because normally entrepreneurs are like, yeah, but the how is so ingrained in their brain space that we can't even get past that to even know
Right.
what we want. I mean, I have
Right.
I have quite a few clients that like confuse themselves, and you're like, but you said you wanted this a while ago. Do you
Yeah.
remember that
Yeah.
whole thing? You know?
Totally.
Yeah, and time's gonna pass anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And even just with a dream or something, a lot of people have a dream, but again, they kill it with the how. I'm just going to give the book as an example. If you start and you go, I want to publish a book. Well, before I publish a book, I need to find someone to distribute the book. Before I find someone to distribute the book, I need to research distributors. Before I research distributors, I need an editor. Before I hire an editor, I need to research editors. Before I research editors, I need to have a manuscript. Before I give her a manuscript, I'm going to need to write the manuscript. It basically makes your steps. And even though, I mean, I've got a list right here of things that have to happen between now and when my book launches. And if you look at it as a whole, it can be overwhelming. But if you take it and you go, okay, if I do one of these steps a week, one step a week, in 40 weeks, my dream's going to be a reality. Like if you just break it down and don't look at it, because that's just where we get overwhelmed. And that's where fear takes over. And fear is not real. Danger is real, but fear is not real. And we're giving fear way too much credit.
A million times, yes. I love this. I know we have to start wrapping up, but I do want to make sure your memoir comes out when, so that way everybody knows.
It comes out May 7th, and it's called Sleeping with a Stranger. You can find it at sleepingwithastranger.com, or you can go to jessicazimmerman.com.
I was like, that's a very sexy title. Is that fiction or nonfiction? She's like, no, it's a memoir. I'm like, oh, okay. Just wondering. Awesome. So I know we have to wrap up. What is one action listeners can take this week to move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
Quit. I would say quit. Like find it. I go back to my grandparents were farmers. My dad is a farmer, and there's a reason that they work when the sun comes up and that they stop working when the sun goes down, because our bodies need time to rest. We need to replenish. We need to, our mind needs to think about something else other than work. And so to figure out a time every day and actually stick to it. I mean, take email off your phone. I don't have email on my phone. And just, for me, that's 3:00 every day, because then I go pick up my kids. And I don't open my computer again until the next day at work. And I think that what that has done for me is it has allowed me to become way more efficient with my work hours. And I get way more done than I did when I was working kind of at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. in my bed with my laptop on my lap, that kind of stuff. I'm just better all around for it. My business is a lot better for it.
I know it sounds so counterintuitive. Work less and you'll actually feel better and potentially have a lot more money in the end. But I so appreciate you telling people to do this. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Tell us your website again. And are you on social? Give us some of the social ways we can follow you.
Yes, you can go to jessicazimmerman.com. That's my website, at zimmermanpodcast.com. My Instagram is at @JessicaZimmerman_. And then you can find me, Jessica Zimmerman, on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening and investing in yourself with your time. I so appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be forever grateful if you would be willing to leave a rating or review in whatever app you use for your podcast. I know that's what really bumps it up in the rankings. And I would so appreciate your time, especially if you've been a long time listener. But of course, if you like this episode and you're brand new, thank you